Hello and welcome to the Cortright Cast, episode 7, your one-stop shop for a semi-intelligent discourse surrounding everything from science fiction, fantasy, movies, books, Hollywood, culture, and everything in between. Today, we are talking about Studio Ghibli and Hayao Miyazaki's directorial legacy. Christopher Nolan has finally broken the silence on Tenet's box office numbers amid coronavirus, and Johnny Depp has been officially released from the Fantastic Beasts franchise. I am your host, Alex Cortright, and I'm joined by my brother, Jonathan Cortright. We're going to jump right into the show. And Studio Ghibli is a topic that I've been really excited to talk about. I've kind of wanted to talk about it for weeks because you and I both have been kind of catching up on the Studio Ghibli catalog ever since HBO Max added pretty much all of their movies to the streaming service. And, you know, I think a lot of people were familiar with Studio Ghibli. Movies like Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, we heard the names. You know, if you're into anime, like they were vastly popular films, but not always, they didn't always feel accessible to me. I always heard the names floating around as a kid, but I didn't really know where to watch them. I had to kind of buy them on Amazon or something if I wanted to try them out. So I think that HBO Max getting the catalog has been really good for the studio and those films, and kind of I've seen a resurgence in the films in the past, like just this year. I would say, like, I see a lot more YouTubers making videos about them, a lot more essays, a lot more analysis of Ghibli work, which I think is just great for everyone. Yeah. But director Hayao Miyazaki has come out of retirement to direct a film called How Do You Live? That's the American name for it. It's based on a Japanese novel from the 1930s, I believe. I'm not super familiar with what it's about. I watched some videos about the film and its development. I know that Miyazaki is really particular about this film. He's particular about all his films. But I know that this one is, you know, they said the last film was The Wind Rises, was in 2013. That was like going to be his last movie. It was like, this is it. We're done. Retiring. He's come out of retirement for this film. And basically what I've heard the sentiment on the, I guess, animator team is that this is for real, the last one. Like, he's getting pretty old, I believe. I don't know his age, but
I think he's almost 80.
It's the sentiment that I picked up in my research was that people were like hoping that he is coherent and, you know, alive long enough to finish the movie, because he's being very particular about it. And what he said was, I don't know if this is the exact quote, but it's just taking a lot longer to get the film out. He said he used to be able to do like, I think 10 minutes, he said, of animation to get out like 10 minutes per month from the studio. And now they're getting out like 1 to 2 minutes.
Oh, wow.
That they're moving a lot slower. And it's something that I think he's very particular about. They were originally trying to release it this year, around the 2020 Olympics, I believe. But did those get moved? Were we supposed to? I was reading that there was like 2020 Olympics. It might have been 2021. But did they just not happen this year? Were they supposed to?
I mean,
I feel like we should know this. Did coronavirus just body the Olympics?
I don't remember hearing anything about that. I feel like I would have heard, like,
I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's 2021.
Maybe.
Take that with a grain of salt. But I know they were talking about releasing it with whatever the year of the Olympics was going to be.
No, because it's got to be on even years. Because
it should have been 2020
had the
then.
Summer Olympics, 2018 Winter Olympics, 2020 Summer Olympics.
So we missed. We had no COVID. Olympics this year.
Yeah.
Wow, dude. The things that
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it's hard times. But yeah, I think they were trying to release it this year, but regardless of coronavirus, I don't think they were going to get anywhere near that.
Right.
As of, I think like last year, they only had like 30 minutes. I think they were like 35 minutes into the film. It's weird how they, like, you know, in live action filming, it's like they just shoot all over the place and do all this stuff, and there's so many different processes. But when it comes to like animation, they're like, we've done 1 minute of filming or of animation, yay, it's complete, and they're like, it's done.
Imagine like deleted scenes in animated movies. It's like, we can't delete that, we spent too long on that.
They're like, oh no, we knew that scene was going in, we wouldn't have put the pen to paper. But and they're hand drawing everything, I believe, as always. But it's supposed to be a very meticulous process. I mean, obviously Miyazaki's always been meticulous, but the sentiment that I gathered is that he wants this. I believe he said, there's a quote. I don't have the exact quote. I could probably find it on my phone, but he literally said, I think it was either his son or his grandson. He wanted it to be like a love letter to him. And so it's like, he's always wanted to do his own thing with his films, but he seems extra set on it being very much like a work of art. Like he's not particularly too worried about the commercial success of the film, which obviously it'll probably be a commercial success to some extent because it's a Ghibli film, a lot of hype around it. But that he really wants it to be like this masterpiece. So I'm really excited to see where he goes with this. And as we've been catching up on all of his films and other Studio Ghibli films, I think for most people, it's a common sentiment that his films are the best ones that Ghibli has put out. But just reflecting on his legacy, like he has done so many great films that to see him like have such an influence on animation, science fiction, fantasy over the years, and to see people, gather around for another film, and I know he's moved a little bit away from the more fantasy style films, but I've noticed an interesting thing as I'm watching a lot of his old films, like especially the older ones. Like I watched Nausicaa and Valley of the Wind, obviously Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, Totoro, Castle in the Sky was in the 80s before those. It's been really interesting to watch I haven't watched them all in order from like when they were released, but after watching, the first two I watched were like Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke. Then I went back and I've been watching the older ones kind of leading up to that. And it's really interesting to watch the progression of the films. And because I feel like with a lot of directors, especially big directors, you tend to see them want to tackle something and tackle something different with the next films. But one of the interesting things about Miyazaki to me is that he seems to work to refine similar themes in all his movies. Like it's not just it's not just that similar themes appear in his films, like, oh, it's part of his style, like obviously stylistic themes will reappear, but like the actual themes of the films and what they're about, it's not like he's just trying to do different things with each film. It's like he's refining it, and I feel like he does it better with each film. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, one of the things that strikes me about Studio Ghibli movies and Miyazaki movies in general is that like traditional American animation is often they rarely go over an hour and a half. They're always even the more adult ones are still directed at kids, attention span wise. And Studio Ghibli movies will really take their time. Like I want to say Howl's Moving Castle is like
a
little bit over 2
hours
or more. Spirited Away is a little over 2 hours. Mononoke is like 2.5 hours. Like they all take their time and they feel very cinematic. Whereas a lot of animation is just because traditionally it is marketed towards kids, is also marketed towards a kid's attention span. Whereas
and
Miyazaki's like I probably wouldn't have enjoyed his movies as much as a kid. I would have been, been going back to like Toy Story.
Yeah, it's actually almost surprising the success that they did garner.
Right,
which could probably be largely due to the cultural differences of them being released in over in the East earlier on, because they didn't get re-released in at least English dubbed format until the 2000s and put out in the US.
But they something about them just like I don't just feel like I'm watching a movie. Like it really does feel like a piece of art. Really, like even the shots of the train and Spirited Away, like her riding the train, are just beautiful, and they'll go on for quite some time.
Yeah,
and it's so like it's like you're just being wrapped in this like cultural blanket too.
Yeah.
Because
that's
probably the best way to put it.
Especially Spirited Away.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is kind of interesting is that, like I said, he doesn't. I don't feel like he's just tackling different subjects or different vibes with his movies. He keeps refining this one until I feel like he finally got it really just right, or at least close to right, like perfect. Because if you look at like Nausicaa, obviously, like if you're familiar with Miyazaki, you know that his he's very into environmentalism, or I don't know if you say like into environmentalism, but he has a lot to say about nature versus machine versus I guess the corporate aspects of capitalism, and not really against capitalism or anything, but just kind of preserving nature. It's often about preserving nature and the purity of tradition and so forth. So it's really interesting to see him refine those concepts down, because Nausicaa, the main theme of that movie is, there's like a poison and people have to live in a specific place, and there's this forest they can't go into. It'll kill them, the poison. The insects of the forest are like, everyone's scared of them. Some people kind of want to kill them, defeat them. There's all sorts of lore within and fantastical elements of the movie. But the overarching vibe is that Nausicaa is I believe the princess, and she's trying to preserve the forest and save them. And it's kind of a typical, oh no, we don't have to, we just need to understand them. We just need to like keep the forest safe and be nice to them and live in harmony type of thing. And quite frankly, on the surface value, in 2020, it's like, okay, nice, because it kind of feels like it's been done. But then you flip back and it's like, oh, wait a second. I think this movie was like 1984, and it really wasn't back then. And even just looking at a lot of the themes of that movie, Nausicaa seems like it was incredibly. It's been listed as a major influence on a lot of science fiction and fantasy, both directors and writers over the years. And it doesn't feel that novel now, but if you take into context the time, it was so far ahead of its time. But you see that concept being, the environmentalism and the protection of the forest and the insects and things like that being a main theme in that movie. Fast forward to 2000s, late 90s, I believe that was around the time when Princess Mononoke was coming out. We're still looking at the same themes. Mm-hmm. He doesn't leave the environmental theme behind at any point in time in his career, it feels like. At least not until Princess Mononoke and Spirited Away. And I feel like almost after he finally released those two movies, he started to drift away from that concepts some more. Almost like he's like, I finally got it right. But it's interesting how he kept like refining on them over the years, because another movie that had pretty much I wouldn't say that all movies have the same message, because they're all unique in their own right. But Castle in the Sky is very much a don't touch nature type of film. Nature is too good for us, preserve the magic of it, type of film. So I don't know. I kind of love the fact that we get to see, instead of seeing a great director do a bunch of different films and just all of them be great. Obviously, most of his films I think are really great, the ones I've seen. But to watch him grow as a director has been really cool as I go back through the catalog.
Mm. Yeah, I love the like dreamlike fairy tale feeling of like Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle. Like just bizarre things happen and they just sort of are accepted. Like in Spirited Away, No Face pops up and starts eating people, and then 20 minutes later she's like, "Want to ride the train with me?" And we're just like, okay, this villain pops out of nowhere, eats some people, and now is riding a train with a child. And like, it's so fairy tale, dreamlike.
There's so much unorthodox about a lot of the films,
but you never feel like it is bizarre, but it feels right for the movie always. And it's even interesting that, like, I guess in Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle, like in Howl's Moving Castle, one of the witch that turns, I'm blanking on the girl's name in the movie.
I don't remember.
But the main girl in the movie turns her into like, an old lady. You think that's going to be like the villain of the movie, and then she's not really by the end of it. And same thing in Spirited Away. You think you think these people are going to be like just these evil villains, and they kind of are, but they're not.
He shies away from villains in general. Yeah, in a lot of the movies,
there's always sort of a purity to him. I don't know. They just feel it. It does feel like a nice warm blanket watching.
Feel is the key word there, in that I think he's obviously a great writer, but I don't typically think of his writing in terms of like structural, technical writing, you know, like how he did the beats and structured the storyboard to make it like all culminate to be this great film. It's actually the feel of the movies that I feel like he constantly gets so right. And that's from everything to the themes, to the music, to the visuals. It's really just about feel. Like, I adore the soundtracks to his films, and every single film always has this, like, I want to say iconic, not like just always the most memorable, but just to me really iconic, like melodic piano, violin, soft orchestral theme to it, or that really surrounds at least a big scene in the movie, or a big just a big piece of the movie. And I always look for those. Like, I look forward to them, and that's something that he himself has cultivated. Which is, you know, with Nausicaa being his first film, that was for Studio Ghibli, or it was before Studio Ghibli was even Studio Ghibli. It was kind of like their first thing with those guys. That film doesn't have that. It doesn't have that as much, the music and stuff, but he started to lean in. He's really started to, just perfect things as he goes. I love a lot of the themes in Castle in the Sky, specifically Spirited Away, Castle in the Sky, and Princess Mononoke. I think are the ones where he's really started to hit it right. And as he perfected those themes, it's really refreshing, because I don't feel like a lot of his movies are about like character. There's a lot of character in them, but they're not really very character development oriented. Like, it's not really character arc oriented.
Well, they're often very adventure focused,
and they feel like, very they feel like they're a study not on a character but on a theme often.
Yeah. Well, even like Totoro is like, I can't really figure that movie out. Like, I liked it a lot, but when I think about it, I go, it's like barely 90 minutes. I don't know how to describe the story of that movie. I'm not entirely sure I could tell you what it's about. It's just like this very contained, like, children's adventure, and it's so just beautiful and moving without having much of a story or any conflict. But you can't stop watching it. Yeah, it's just so, like, I don't even know how to describe it.
It's magical from the start.
It's magic. Yeah, it feels just magical.
I was in love with the movie from the opening scenes where they're like arriving at their new house and they're looking around, and you're just honestly getting introduced to the girls, the main characters. Yeah, I was really in love with just the way it felt. I was in love with the way that they acted, their mannerisms.
Yeah, that movie more than anything just captured a mood and a feeling so well that, like, I didn't even think about until it was over that I was like, oh, there was like no story to that movie at all. Yeah, and like almost nothing happened. Yeah, so the themes of I think less character development, less character arcs, more kind of studies of different types of people and different ideas. And I really think there's a lot of value to that. And I guess, like, I don't want every director to be like that, but it's refreshing because I feel like Miyazaki has occupied his own place. It's not just like, oh, he's a great director among great directors. I feel like he is in his own league, and not to say in his own league above other directors. I just feel like he's doing something no one else did anything like him. So it's been really fun to go back through these movies, and unfortunately I have not been able to watch all of them, but my plan was actually to watch Grave of Fireflies tonight, so I'm interested. Actually, did he do that one? I'm not even sure if he did that one, but I want to say he did.
That's
I might be wrong about this. I want to say that's the first one, or one
that's
of the
in
first
89
ones. It was in 89.
It was in 89.
I thought it was 83 or something.
Nah.
Okay.
It was late. I can't remember if he did that. So
that's still one of the really early ones.
Yeah, it was very early. So that's the one that's on. It's got a mystery to me because it's the one that's the main one that isn't on HBO.
I heard it's really depressing.
So yeah, We'll see. I'll let you know how it goes, but I'm excited, and my question is though, and I think you can. I don't want to make definitive statements, but what do you think is probably the best Miyazaki film?
Spirited Away.
Spirited Away?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I mean, there might be another one, but like I don't know. I haven't seen them all, but I just have a feeling that no other Studio Ghibli movie will get me the way that one did. So, and I loved even when Marnie was there, which isn't a Miyazaki movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love that movie. It had a similar like effect on me as Spirited Away did, but I just don't see another one hitting me the way that Spirited Away did.
I just so glad that you had that exact
everything about that movie
because like I don't want to commit any type of heresy by like trying to rank the films, or there's a couple that I haven't seen, but what I do want to look at is, like I said, I feel like his career, he was developing something, at least up until Spirited Away. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the reason Spirited Away is my favorite one, no matter what, so far, is because I feel like he finally really hit it and got it right. I think you could say the same thing with Princess Mononoke, because those two are probably the most different, but similar in that, Mononoke is very environmental, and Spirited Away has a little more social commentary on kind of what was going on at the time in Japan. Mm-hmm. And the cultural and political themes, and there's so much commentary on that. But I really feel like Spirited Away just has the most substance. Once again, I think Mononoke could challenge it, but the substance in Spirited Away, combined with the amount of Japanese lore and culture that is inserted so tactfully and lovingly, like you said, it feels like you're just being like wrapped up in a blanket of this beautiful land and lore and culture, while also there being all these relatable themes that can really, I think, resound regardless of your culture.
Right.
And not only that, it's incredibly unique. It feels almost, like you said, like a dream. And I don't feel like as I continue to watch movies and enjoy all of them, pretty much all of them I've enjoyed, but there is a clear like progression. You can tell that he really learned where he wanted to go. And I feel like when he hit Spirited Away, I feel like it was him firing on all cylinders. The soundtrack absolutely slaps. The visuals obviously are iconic and great. I love the characters. I felt like the iconicness of a lot of the characters, from the guy who's like in the fire with all the the balls, the mothball, yeah. Like soot sprites. Yeah. Like the soot sprites, and the to No Face, to the dragon, mm-hmm. to the boy that was the dragon, I forget his name. Like everything, to Yubaba.
There's horrifying witches.
There's absolutely like nightmare inducing witches. There was just so much. I think that there's just so much in that film stuffed in that I don't feel like he was just telling a story. I felt like it was just like he was absolutely immersing you in a world and wrapping you in that blanket. And that movie really just takes the cake for me. I think that Mononoke and Spirited Away really were, even though it sucks because I don't want to be like, the most popular movies are these best movies. But I think in this case, like, I think people get it right when they say like he really came into his own, and just it was like him firing on all cylinders at his best for those two movies. So yeah, very excited for How Do You Live, and very in a romantic era of time in which being able to discover Miyazaki films has been a really enjoyable thing to do this year. But moving into other news, I've talked on the podcast, as well as you and I have talked a lot outside of the podcast about Christopher Nolan's Tenet. We went and saw it. This was a movie that we anticipated for a long time, ever since like the trailers dropped like the year before, looking forward to it. The delays, coronavirus, so much up in the air around the film. Finally went and saw it. We've talked about the film. I'm not here to talk about the film today, but where we've hit a point where there's kind of a consensus on how the film did at the box office, as well as implications for theaters and films as a whole. And Christopher Nolan has finally spoken. I hate to say finally, like we're just like anxiously awaiting his statement, but he's finally, I believe he did an interview in which they talked a little bit about the success of the film, and I adored Tenet. I really love that movie. It was a great experience. I'm really glad I went to see it. I'm so thankful that it got released, even with amid coronavirus and all of the restrictions. But in the end, it has done around $350 million in box office. I don't know if you've seen that number.
Worldwide, yeah.
Yeah, worldwide.
Right.
And I guess that's as it's coming to the end of its run. He has come out, and I'll just read the quote that Nolan said. He said, when this is regarding the 350 million, because people are pretty much there's a debate on whether that's a good number or a bad number, and that's why I really don't like where this is going, because I think Nolan says it best here. That's why I'm going to read the exact words. He says, "I am worried that the studios are drawing the wrong conclusions from our release, that rather than looking at where the film has worked well and how that can provide them with much needed revenue, they're looking at where it hasn't lived up to pre-COVID expectations, and they're going to start using that as an excuse to make exhibition take the losses from the pandemic instead of getting in the game and adapting or rebuilding our business, in other words." And he hits it right. He hits the nail right on the head, because honestly, like, even before it was at 350 million worldwide, like, obviously, like, it didn't do great on release because of the restrictions. There were so many theaters that weren't even showing. I mean, we had to drive 2.5 hours just to get to a theater that would show it. And then obviously the reduced capacities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to be lower. But like, that being said, with how bad things have been with coronavirus, I wouldn't say that I was just impressed with the numbers, but even like in the first few weekends, I was like, oh, it's making some money. Maybe there's some hope.
Well, it did absolutely abysmal in the US. Like, almost, like, the majority of that 350 million was overseas. Like, if you look at the actual domestic numbers, it was like,
really?
It was.
I think, didn't it do around 50 in the first like weekend or two?
I want to say it did like 40 or 50.
I remember it was like 47, 46 million.
I'm not entirely sure. I don't want to. I don't know this for a fact, but I don't even think it made it to 100 million in the US.
Really?
I'm pretty sure almost all of that came from overseas. And that's where it's a bad sign. Now, Nolan's from the UK, so when he's talking about the success of it, he is talking a little bit more about, like, Europe and those areas, whereas in the US it did like almost nothing.
Okay.
So that's the main, that's why people are calling it such a failure, is because it really was a absolute bomb here.
But I guess, like, my point is that exactly what he says, and that I don't like the idea that we're looking at it through the lens of pre-COVID numbers that we could do. I think it's a really bad idea for theaters, for the art form, and for the business, for them to be sitting back in their executive studios and being like, we're just not going to put out any more movies until this is all ready. Then adapt. Right. I don't like the fact that they seem unwilling, even in his own words, like, these studios seem unwilling to adapt and put these movies out and figure out how to progress the business, or to rebuild, like, that perfect wording from Nolan, to rebuild the business, to figure out how to get this revenue. Like, because yes, these are bad numbers in comparison to old numbers, but amid COVID, I mean, people were not going out of their house. They're still not going out of their house. You're still not allowed to in most places. There's really nothing you can even do here where we live. People are still scared, and rightfully so in a lot of cases, to go out. So I don't even look at, like, the success or the failure of it in the US and be like, that was bad. I'm just like, that's coronavirus. It had nothing to do with the film. Everyone knows that.
I mean, the movie was projected to be a massive hit. Yeah. It wasn't like it's certainly not the movie's fault that it wasn't a hit. And yeah, I don't like people pretending that it was a failure in the normal sense. It's
yeah, like, no, I just don't like these labels.
It was a failure entirely because of COVID.
Yeah.
But also the movie, I can't remember the budget, but it was like a couple $100 million. It was insanely high budget. Then you factor in marketing to that. And so, yeah, they didn't come close to making back they didn't come close to making much of a profit off of that movie. So yeah, I mean, technically the numbers are bad in that sense. But the issue is that Tenet, how bad Tenet did specifically in the US, made all these other studios push back their movies. So when they pushed back their movies, theaters were just starting to open in most places. So theaters finally open, and all these movies go, oh, well, we're actually not releasing. So now they're starving theaters, and theaters are not going to be able to make it if they can't release new movies. Like, our theater's open right now. Mm-hmm. We haven't been once.
Yeah, if there was a movie to watch, I could be there.
Nothing's come out.
Yeah. I just don't think it's a good move. And like he said, obviously the coronavirus affected the numbers, and obviously the numbers are bad comparatively to old numbers. But that being said, I'm impressed with the numbers amid coronavirus, because I'm looking at no movies at all.
I was shocked by the numbers overseas.
So the idea that it made any money at all, I think that it would be a better idea for these studios to look at it and go, we need to make any kind of money. We need to rebuild this. Because the other thing is, like, one thing that I worry about is not really waiting for movies. Now, movies are such cultural tentpoles that obviously I don't think they're just ever going to go away. But I think that the damage that's being done to the medium, and you could say that through the quality of the medium, you know, from streaming services to theaters, or just the medium in general, and whether or not people are watching movies or versus shows, or how many people are watching movies in general. The damage that it's doing to the medium by not allowing people to consume it, I think that's going to be something that's regrettable. Mm-hmm. I think that you need to start rebuilding the business, trying to figure out what's going on and how you can make some money and move forward, rather than just sitting on your hands. Because I'm not an expert on this, and I don't want to, make an invalid claim, but I think you can look at the sports industry, and I'm not saying it's exactly the same, but we didn't have sports for a lot of this time during COVID, and we only just got them back. And now I'm not a big sports ball watcher, but that being said, the numbers are not looking good. Mm-hmm. Like, sports came back. They're doing championships. They're doing playoffs, basketball, football, baseball. Obviously, people can't fill the stands. Obviously, it's going to be a little less hype around them but I think one of the things that the way that this correlates to the film industry is that sports were a part of the culture. It was what you did, maybe not us, but like people that enjoy sports watch the game on Saturday, on Sunday. They follow these things, and taking that away for months at a time, what people did was, on a whole, I think is a indicator as to why they may not be doing as well now, is that people found other things to do.
Yeah.
They, how humans get used to their routines. They switch into these different routines. They adapt, and people adapted to not having sports. And now that you've given them back, I don't think people were just sitting on their hands like, we don't have any sports. They figured out what to do. And I worry that, with film already it's obviously a big business, but theaters especially have declined over the past years. And yes, people are still watching Netflix. They're, watching a lot of shows, but I'd say long form films are not doing as well as they have in the past. And I think it's a bad idea to let the medium slip out of the public eye.
Right.
For an extended period of time.
Well, the issue is that they're giving people new release movies on streaming services. People are going to get used to that, and they're not going to want to go back to theaters.
They already don't.
Right.
Yeah.
So the longer and longer you do that, people start going, well, why isn't Tenet on a streaming service? Well, nobody needs to be watching Tenet on a streaming service.
Yeah.
Sorry. Nobody needs to. It's the
I think
worst
it would physically
possible way
hurt
to
me
watch
trying
a movie.
to watch it. Like, I don't think I ever want to watch the movie again. I don't think I can watch it on a TV.
I'd watch it now knowing the theater experience.
Yeah, I don't. But I think I would just be thinking the whole time about how it didn't live up.
Yeah, but the idea of it being the first time you see it on a streaming service, or even wanting it to be the first time you see it on a streaming service, is just absurd. Because it's so dependent on a theater experience. Like I thought the movie was really good. I wasn't as in love with it as you. I'd say it was a good movie and an amazing theater experience to me. Mm-hmm. I don't think I would have liked it as much if I had seen it at home first. But Yeah, I think people are getting so used to the streaming service thing. Universal's got their video on demand deal going on, or I don't know when they're implementing that, but where their movies will go to streaming services like 17 days after release.
Ugh, that is not long enough.
Yeah. Now, right now it's only Universal movies, but I feel like pretty soon it'll be other studios doing that. And I mean, the reason they're doing it is because if they can't guarantee a profit in theaters, and we talked about how No Time to Die was Netflix offered like $300 million for it. Mm-hmm. So you got a big blockbuster that can't guarantee that they're going to make what they need to make. Netflix says, we'll offer you $300 million for it. That's guaranteed $300 million, instead of taking the risk of, releasing it and it just not doing anything. So the issue is that they got guaranteed money over here, and then they got this risk of a declining industry. Mm-hmm. Studios are always going to choose the guaranteed money, unless you have somebody behind it like Nolan or Tarantino who's really pushing the theater release. They're always going to go with the guaranteed money. I mean, even David Fincher's new movie is going to Netflix. I don't know if it was always intended to go to Netflix or whether it was supposed to go to theaters and Netflix bought it.
They've already been going to Netflix, even before COVID stuff, even before theaters, more movies were going. Yeah.
And I just see people getting used to it if theaters don't come back in a big way soon. Yeah. And I don't see them coming back in a big way soon.
And yeah, and I think obviously like we as absolute, like theater experience lovers are not going to like that. Yeah. That being said, outside of, our experience, there are plenty of people who like that. Like I'm just looking at the actual studios. If they want to preserve this experience, they're going to have to do something. Yeah. They have to play a active role in preserving the experience, I guess, because people are going to accept it. People like you and I that really, really, really want theaters, it's the numbers aren't comparable to the people that just want to watch Netflix. Mm-hmm. So if they want to save this industry, the people who make the money on the industry, they have to pick their feet up and move. But I'm not saying that theaters need to just go into the red, like just dump a bunch of money into a dying industry or into, the economy of films and theaters for no reason, for no return. I'm just saying that it seems, at least to the public eye, like their strategy is to have no strategy at all, to just wait it out. Yeah. And I think that is going to eat them alive.
Yeah. No, I think they're just playing into streaming services for sure. Yeah. Because it's guaranteed money right now. And I think as long as it's guaranteed money, they're going to continue. I don't think that they have any attachments to theaters whatsoever. I think if theaters were guaranteeing them more money than streaming services, they would absolutely be releasing in theaters. But right now they're not. So I think unless something switches back, hopefully, I think the best outcome is that hopefully coronavirus can be under control in the near future, and people can feel safe going to theaters, because they showed that even in the areas where theaters were open, people weren't going to see Tenet, and it was because of COVID. Yeah. And I think if you can get to where people feel safe enough to go to theaters again, and you start releasing the big blockbusters like they're planning to in the spring, like I think A Quiet Place 2 is trying to release in spring, No Time to Die, and I think a couple other big blockbusters are trying to release in the spring. I think if you can get people to go back then and get some good numbers, I think that'll be the saving grace for theaters. I'm not sure the likelihood of that happening, though. I hope it does.
Yeah.
I really hope it
Everything is up in the air right now, but definitely just an interesting time. I mean, I don't think there's any like right answer, as much as we're criticizing the industry or the studios, it's there's so many lose-lose situations. I think I'm always going to err on the side of trying to figure things out, trying to innovate, trying to move forward. And I don't like the way that they're handling it right now. I feel like there's got to be a way forward. But that being said, it's not my millions of dollars that's on the line. Yeah, so right. I don't like not understand why they do what they do. But so moving into our final topic of the day, this one's a bit of a tricky one because Johnny Depp has officially been released from the Fantastic Beasts film franchise. And it's tricky because there's a lot of legality involved. Or not legality of whether or not he can be in the movie, but, it's because of his legal case of, the I guess, the accusations of abuse. As far as I can tell, between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, there is quite blatant abuse on both sides. We're not here to get into the nitty gritty of the court cases or what's going on in that realm. Fantastic Beasts as a franchise, I feel like, is in kind of a really weird and stressful place in general because there's been a lot of controversy surrounding J.K. Rowling as well. And I believe she was helping write on those movies as well. So I feel like they're just in a lot of hot water. Once again, I'm not really interested in the legal or political aspects of these topics. But what I think is interesting is the fact that the studio has already released Johnny Depp following the result of the defamation court case, which it didn't have anything to do with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, or it wasn't between them. It was between Johnny Depp and the newspaper that, if I recall, supposedly called him a wife beater in the newspaper. And a lot of people are disappointed by this result. Now, I have no interest in being fully briefed on like doing a ton of research into the cases, because that's for the law to decide. You know, as far as I'm concerned, Johnny Depp has some problems, but as far as I'm concerned, Amber Heard has some big problems just as well. These people. So my take on it from between the two of them is that if you're going to take Johnny Depp out of the movies, I don't want to see Amber Heard getting any movies either. I think that's fair to say. It's that there is, I think, very blatant proof on both sides, from as far as I've gathered from public opinion to what research I have done into what's been presented in these court cases that are ongoing, is that both of these people, either you need to let it go until the court case is finished, like all of the cases, not just the defamation lawsuit against the newspaper. You need to let it go until they're all finished, or both of these people need to be out. I think it needs to be equal treatment across the board, I think, is really the thing. But that's for the courts to sort out, you know, who's in the right, who's in the wrong. As far as I can tell, I think it's pretty safe to say, I think it's a not controversial thing to say that they were both in the wrong, obviously, across the board. But I think it's interesting to see the studio dropping Depp from the film so quickly, which I guess isn't super quick based on, you know, these allegations and these cases have been ongoing for a while now, a few years, right? It's got to be at least a year or two.
I think a couple of years.
Yeah, a couple of years. But for them to wait so long, and then also to drop right after just the defamation case with the newspaper, not after like the result of the case between Amber Heard and Johnny Depp.
I'm wondering if they're just kind of wanting to get rid of some baggage too, and if that's.
That's what I feel like. They're just in a weird place. Too much hot water. I'm not sure
Johnny Depp's a huge box office draw anymore either. Yeah. So I don't think that they're losing too much on their end. I think they're trying to just cut some like political baggage.
Yeah, I just think
if they truly cared about the case, they would have cut him because of the Amber Heard Johnny Depp
just
case.
The original allegation,
not just the defamation case.
Yeah, that's what's so strange to me is that they held on, and then now they're just like, all right, it's been too far. But they're in, like we said, I think the hot water around Rowling in general right now, and I think it's a sketchy place to be just producing content based around her work right now in general, because of how angry people are with her, and rightfully so in some instances. But, you know, I don't think they're losing a lot by losing Johnny Depp. But I think what I want to see is just I don't want to see Amber Heard getting movie roles if Johnny Depp's going to be losing his movie roles before the court cases are even out. But I mean, that being said, I'm also not totally opposed to just like completely like letting J.K. Rowling properties go. Like, I mean, people like Harry Potter. They grew up with Harry Potter. It was like, you can't deny that Harry Potter was a cultural phenomenon. That being said, years later, regardless of anything that's come out about Rowling's personal life or personal beliefs, like, I don't think the franchise ages that well to begin with. I don't think it's something that sticks for years and years and years and years and years to come. I think it sticks as a cultural, you know, I think it marks a place in time culturally when people were reading those books and growing up with those books. But like, I mean, I don't know. the story of Harry Potter is just not that good. Rowling did some good things in the writing, but the Harry Potter, like, I mean, obviously she had some good ideas and she handled some things well in the books, but like, it's not like that good. Like, I remember, I watched all the movies and I was like, this is what people are so excited about. I was like, I need to read these books, like, because they must be way better than the books. And I've done extensive research among friends who have read the books. And no, it's like that. Like, so,
you know, I'm not really familiar with any of it. I think I read the first book and I thought it was good. And yeah, I never read any of the rest of them. Never saw any of the movies. And
she's a good writer now, and she does some really good things with some characters. And you know, there's so much. The problem with her is always there's just so much baggage after the books came out. Like all of her retconning, people are constantly annoyed with how she retcons characters in different ways and different things later on. The movies, the reception of the movies, and now Fantastic Beasts. I think it really would have been best if she just like left it alone after that franchise was done. She could keep writing some movies, but like. Or writing books. I didn't
think she wrote the first Fantastic Beasts movie. I thought she just wrote the second one, and people like went crazy over it.
I don't know if she wrote the second one. I think she's just a part of it.
No, I'm pretty sure she straight up wrote the script for the second one. I want to say that's what happened because I know that people like blamed. I think people blamed her entirely for the second, and I never saw either of them, so I don't know.
I just feel like the property. I know everyone's gonna want to milk the property, but I feel like the Harry Potter property probably should have just been give it its legacy. And be like, that was it. And she probably should have just stopped talking about it. Like all the retcons, all the extra stuff added, new universe type stuff. It was like, I know a lot of people were like unsatisfied with some of the ways that it ended. But, you know, not to get into the nitty gritty of like Harry Potter. I'm not a fan of it to begin with. So I'm not the person to be talking to about it. But it seems like just a rough time for not her, but any property that she's involved in. So, and I guess that's why they're dropping Johnny Depp. But I don't know. It's I hope that I think out of anything when it comes to the Depp and Heard case, not even the case, them in general, I just really hope that they get some help. Yeah. Like outside of the case, like Johnny Depp it's so sad. Just his story, you know, like what's it have to be like? And I say sad, you know, because he's done some, obviously, you know, I don't even know the full extent of the cases. So not to say like it's sad in that like if he's done some awful things, like not to, I guess, not in any way to defend any of the awful things that he does, but like to just look at his life, the stardom that he reached so early in his life, to be the cultural icon that he was, to make as much money as he did, and then to fall victim to the addiction and lifestyle that he did, to lead him down this path to having such problems. And clearly Amber Heard had the same things. So it's really just so sad to watch like the way that life can go, especially I think age has so much to do with it. You know, the age at which he was really coming into that fame and fortune and where it can go. It's so sad to see a legacy that, I mean, was a DiCaprio level, if not more, like level of just like acting prowess. You know, he was the man, the actor for a while. And I mean, obviously he's talented enough to do it, but like the way he just started to get typecast, the way I think he started taking films probably for money. I think he probably stopped being as invigorated by the roles, and then obviously for his personal life to fall into turmoil and addiction the way that it is, it's such a tragic story of like, you know, an icon, you know, someone that a lot of people probably looked up to and adored, and to see where it goes now, and to have him, you know, being thrown under the bus the way that he is as well by both the culture and you know, within the court cases and stuff. You know, like obviously he's not going to be without fault in any way, shape, or form. And I think it'd probably be best to say that they both equally hurt each other. And I don't mean physically, or, you know, like that's all for the court to decide. But like the things that they both were doing to each other, it sounds like it was the most toxic relationship. Yeah. And so to slip into that and then have everything go the way that it's just really sad to see anybody, not just Johnny Depp, but to see anybody have to go through that as well as become that. Right. But that's a really sad note to end the podcast on. Yeah. That's so bad, but that is where we're going to do it. That's how we're doing it. We're just flying by the seat of our pants. We're going to
Studio Ghibli's amazing.
Studio Ghibli is amazing. Theaters need to start releasing movies, And we're going to go cry now. Because
Spirited Away is so good.
Because Spirited Away is so good. Anyway, this has been episode 7 of the Cortright Cast. Yeah, that covers pretty much everything. Like the video on YouTube, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy, and comment with your thoughts about anything. Tell us we're full of crap. Tell us we're right about everything, preferably.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us that we're incredibly attractive. Like anything you can think of. Just let us know in the comments. Just fill it up. Give me a 1,000-page essay on why I'm wrong about how bad J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter movies are. I welcome it. Anyway, until next time, we'll see you guys later.